Dr. Evelyn Reed occupied seat 16A, an inconspicuous traveler sipping water and skillfully deflecting conversation. Few would guess the woman in the simple blazer was Major Spectre Reed, a celebrated F-16 pilot with a history of 150 combat flights. When an emergency erupted at 35,000 feet, her hidden identity would alter the course of everyone's day. The engines of Flight 447 droned consistently as the Boeing 737 sliced through the clear sky on its way from Denver to Phoenix. Sunlight poured through the cabin windows, illuminating passengers who were settling in for an anticipated 3-hour journey. In seat 16A, Evelyn Reed appeared to be just another professional on the move. She wore a navy blazer over jeans, her dark hair secured in a simple ponytail, with a laptop case stowed beneath the seat ahead. Her appearance gave no hint that she was anything other than a typical passenger traveling for business or a personal visit. When a flight attendant named Chloe pushed her beverage cart down the aisle to her row, she offered a warm smile and inquired about Evelyn's drink choice. Evelyn politely requested water and offered her thanks. Chloe attempted some light conversation, asking if her trip was for work or leisure. Evelyn offered a blended response, stating she was visiting relatives in Phoenix. Chloe remarked on the value of family time before proceeding to the next row. Mr. Davies, a garrulous salesman in his 50s seated next to Evelyn, couldn't resist starting a chat. He noted she was traveling by herself and asked if it was a business trip. Evelyn gave an ambiguous reply, suggesting it was something of that nature. When he shared that he was in insurance and inquired about her profession, Evelyn paused for a moment before saying she was in government service, dismissing it as unexciting work. Mr. Davies nodded with familiarity, expressing that he knew the feeling of being a paper pusher. Evelyn concurred and shifted her focus back to her magazine, signaling an end to the discussion. Across the aisle, Maria Sanchez was trying to soothe her restless toddler. She apologized to Evelyn for the disruption, explaining that her son found flying difficult. Evelyn reassured her that it was no problem, remarking that children will be children. Maria then asked if Evelyn had kids of her own, to which Evelyn replied, "Not at the moment. Perhaps one day." Maria observed that Evelyn seemed remarkably patient with kids and composed under duress. Evelyn managed a faint smile but offered no further comment, privately reflecting on the immense pressures she had actually endured in her career. The reality was that Evelyn Reed was far from an ordinary government employee. She was Major Evelyn Spectre Reed, one of the U.S. Air Force's most distinguished F-16 pilots. Her experience included more than 150 combat missions across 3 separate conflict zones. She earned her call sign, Spectre, after surviving a direct missile impact over hostile airspace, managing to fly her critically damaged jet for 40 minutes with most systems failing, and miraculously landing it safely back at base. Her colleagues still spoke of that incredible flight with a mix of awe and disbelief. Today, however, she was committed to being just another face on Flight 447. She was traveling to see her sister and craved a peaceful, unremarkable journey. She was weary of the attention and the barrage of questions that followed whenever her military background was revealed. For once, she simply wished to be an ordinary person on a routine flight. In the cockpit, Captain Mark Evans and First Officer Ben Carter scanned their instruments as the airliner continued its uneventful cruise. Evans, a seasoned pilot in his mid-40s, noted the perfect weather forecast for their route to Phoenix. Carter, younger and less experienced in commercial aviation, enthusiastically agreed. Following a turbulent flight the day before that had unsettled passengers, he welcomed a boring trip. As Evans adjusted his headset, a voice crackled through from Denver Center, informing Flight 447 of an unidentified aircraft in their vicinity and instructing them to hold their current heading and altitude. Evans confirmed the message and requested further information. The controller replied they had no more details but were dispatching military aircraft to assess the situation, stressing that the commercial flight should proceed as normal. Evans and Carter shared a look of concern. Carter quietly asked if they should alert the passengers. Evans decided against it, reasoning that it might be a false alarm and there was no sense in causing unnecessary panic. High above them, 2 F-16 Fighting Falcons tore across the sky, their engines carving white trails. The lead jet was piloted by Captain Alex Ghost Miller, a 32-year-old veteran. His wingman was Lieutenant Chris Shadow Kim, 28, who was keen to prove his mettle. Inside his cockpit, Captain Miller checked his radar while communicating with ground control. He reported they were nearing the specified coordinates but had no visual on the mystery aircraft. His wingman, Shadow, then announced he had a contact on his scope, climbing through 30,000 feet. Ghost confirmed the target on his own radar and notified Denver Center they were moving to intercept. The two F-16s banked sharply, the intense G-forces pinning the pilots to their seats as they raced toward the unidentified plane. Back on the commercial flight, Evelyn was reading when she detected a minor change in the plane's trajectory. Her finely honed instincts, developed over thousands of flying hours, picked up on the subtle shift in engine pitch and the aircraft's orientation. She peered out her window but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Mr. Davies, less attuned to aviation nuances, asked if they had just altered their course. Evelyn casually suggested it was likely to avoid some weather, though she knew that wasn't the case. The maneuver's precision told her it was a military-directed adjustment for national security reasons. Her heart rate increased slightly, but her expression remained placid. In the cockpit, Denver Center issued new orders for Flight 447 to deviate 10 degrees right due to military activity. Captain Evans acknowledged and adjusted their heading. They could overhear military chatter on nearby frequencies, confirming that a significant event was unfolding. Both pilots knew such diversions of civilian traffic were not ordered lightly. The unidentified aircraft soon became visible to the F-16s. It was a small, single-engine Cessna, but something was obviously amiss. It was unresponsive to radio calls, its transponder was off, and its flight path was erratic. Ghost and Shadow positioned themselves on either side of the small plane for a closer inspection. Captain Miller flew his F-16 near enough to see into the Cessna's cockpit, and the reason for its strange behavior became clear. He radioed Denver Center, identifying the aircraft and reporting that the pilot was slumped over the controls, seemingly unconscious. After a closer pass, Miller confirmed it was a medical emergency. The aircraft was now flying uncontrolled, and they had to steer it away from civilian flight paths before it caused a mid-air collision or crashed into a populated area. Denver Center acknowledged the dire situation and informed Miller that a commercial airliner, Flight 447, was nearby and would need to be escorted to safety while they managed the runaway Cessna. Miller directed his wingman, Shadow, to escort the airliner while he stayed with the small plane. Through her window, Evelyn's expert eyes caught sight of a speck that rapidly grew into the familiar shape of an F-16. She watched with professional curiosity as it skillfully assumed a protective position off their wing. Other passengers soon noticed the fighter jet, and a ripple of panic went through the cabin as people questioned what was happening. The flight attendant, Chloe, used the intercom to calm everyone, explaining it was a minor air traffic issue and the military plane was a precaution. Mr. Davies turned to Evelyn, his face etched with worry, and asked if she had ever witnessed such a thing. Evelyn looked at the F-16, noting its weapons loadout and the pilot's precise flying. She lied smoothly, saying it was a first for her, despite having been in this very scenario from both perspectives countless times. In the cockpit, Denver Center officially informed Flight 447 of their military escort. The controller explained that an unresponsive aircraft was in the area, and the escort was a safety measure. The situation with the Cessna was worsening. It had started a slow descent toward the suburbs of Phoenix. Captain Miller was trying every emergency frequency to rouse the pilot. He repeatedly identified himself and asked for a sign, but there was no reply. As the plane descended through 28,000 feet, Miller urgently contacted Denver Center, requesting rules of engagement to prevent a disaster on the ground. The controller authorized him to use any necessary means but proposed one last attempt. They had information that a qualified pilot was on board Flight 447 and intended to connect her to Miller's frequency. Miller was taken aback when the controller referred to the pilot as her. On the airliner, Chloe approached Evelyn's seat with a serious look. She explained that the pilots needed to speak with her up front. When Evelyn asked why, Chloe admitted she didn't know the details, only that air traffic control had requested her by name. Evelyn unbuckled and followed the flight attendant to the cockpit, feeling the eyes of every passenger on her. Captain Evans greeted her and asked directly if she was a pilot. Evelyn reluctantly confirmed she was. Evans handed her a headset, explaining that Denver Center wanted her to speak with the military pilots. She put it on, knowing her anonymity was about to vanish. She identified herself as the passenger from Flight 447, but Denver Center instructed her to use her military call sign. After a moment of hesitation, knowing the implications, she took a breath and spoke into the MIC. "This is Spectre." The name immediately registered with Captain Miller. His eyes widened as he asked for confirmation. "Spectre," as in Major Evelyn Spectre Reed. When she confirmed, his tone filled with awe. He identified himself as Ghost and told her he'd served in her squadron in Afghanistan, mentioning that she had saved his wingman during a mission. He then explained the crisis with the unconscious pilot in the Cessna. Evelyn looked out the cockpit window, instantly assessing the situation with her combat-trained mind. She told Ghost she could see the Cessna 172 and confirmed the medical emergency. After learning the pilot had been unresponsive for 8 minutes, she knew their options were limited. She devised a daring plan. Ghost would use the wake turbulence from his F-16 to gently nudge the Cessna off its collision course and toward the open desert. The maneuver was incredibly risky and had never been tried in a real emergency, but it was their only chance. As Evelyn detailed the procedure, Captain Evans and First Officer Carter listened in astonishment, realizing a military legend was sitting in their cockpit. Ghost acknowledged Spectre's plan and began positioning his F-16, placing his complete trust in her expertise. Shadow, still escorting the airliner, heard the plan unfold over the radio and requested to assist, but both Spectre and Ghost ordered him to maintain his post. The passengers remained oblivious, watching the escort jet, unaware that the quiet woman from 16A was commanding a life-or-death operation. Evelyn provided precise guidance to Ghost, warning him about the fine margins required to manipulate the smaller plane without sending it into an uncontrollable spin. Her calm, authoritative voice guided him through every step of the unprecedented rescue. The turbulence from Ghost's F-16 gradually pushed the Cessna onto a new heading, away from populated areas. After several tense minutes, the plane was successfully redirected toward uninhabited land. With the immediate danger averted, Denver Center coordinated with ground rescue teams. As the crisis subsided, Ghost made a surprising request to Denver Center, permission to perform an aerial salute to honor Spectre for her critical assistance. The rare military tribute was approved, and Shadow was cleared to join the formation. Inside Flight 447, Captain Evans announced that the passengers were about to see something special, a military salute for a service member who had just helped avert a catastrophe. He didn't immediately reveal that this hero was on their flight. Passengers watched, mesmerized, as the two F-16s executed a flawless, synchronized flyby. As the salute ended, Captain Evans made a second announcement, revealing that the honor was for Major Evelyn Spectre Reed, one of the Air Force's most decorated pilots, who was traveling with them. The quiet woman from seat 16A was a war hero. The atmosphere in the cabin shifted dramatically. Mr. Davies looked at Evelyn with newfound respect. Maria Sanchez realized the woman she had apologized to for a fussy toddler had faced unimaginable pressures. When Evelyn returned to her seat, she was met with a mix of awe and gratitude. Her hope for an anonymous flight was gone. When the plane landed in Phoenix, news crews were waiting. Airport security escorted her through the terminal as she reflected on the day's irony. She had wanted a quiet trip but had ended up directing a mid-air rescue. The incident became a national story, with experts praising the innovative technique used to save the Cessna. The unconscious pilot survived, making a full recovery thanks to Evelyn's quick thinking. The legend of the passenger in seat 16A spread throughout military circles, a testament to how combat skills could save lives in the most unexpected ways. For Evelyn Reed, it was another day of service, even when she was just trying to be a regular person on a regular flight.